Oh, hello. For a while now, I've had a funny idea for a video knocking about in my head. I wanted to make a video called The Best Magic the Gathering Format, and in it, I would basically go over every format from Draft to Commander to Modern to Pauper to Legacy to Standard to Cube, and conclude them each to be the best Magic format, only for different and unique reasons. Because, of course, there is no such thing as a best Magic format. Magic the Gathering isn't one game, but many, and with many Magic the Gathering players, there are many, many wonderful and different ways to enjoy the game. That would have been the thesis of this video, but I opted not to do it because I didn't want to encourage Commander players and Limited players yelling at each other over which of their vastly different yet equally awesome formats was truly the best way to play Magic. As always, the best format in Magic is the one you enjoy the most. If you are having fun, then you are doing it correct. To my surprise, however, last weekend brought us many new things in Magic the Gathering. It brought us the Mythic Invitational, which wowed audiences with the first competitive MTG event played on Magic Arena, shattering viewership records, introducing audiences to a veritable smorgasbord of amazing Magic personalities, from the MPL, literally the best players in the world, to hand-picked, awesome, and engaging streamers, community members, the works for what may be the most exciting group of competitors ever, and delivered into this record number of homes by the best coverage team I feel Magic has ever seen. It also introduced us to a brand new format, previously never before seen, and after this last weekend, hopefully never seen again. Why? I'll tell you. You see, I may not be able to do a video about the best format in Magic the Gathering, because an absolute best does not exist. But I can now do a video about the worst format in Magic the Gathering, because thanks to single elimination duo standard, it now exists, and it nearly derailed the biggest, most successful Magic the Gathering event in the game's entire history. Blah, 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 blah. So what is Duo Standard, and why did it fail? Let's take a fair and critical look. The Standard Duo format is a new format created just for Magic Arena as an event, and showcased for the first time at the MTG Mythic Invitational, which, if you somehow missed it, was a $1 million tournament featuring a selection of streamers, pros, and other personalities from the Magic community. Now, before I continue, I want to be very clear. The Mythic Invitational was ultimately still a smashing success in all but one area. It was the first Magic the Gathering event to break 100,000 concurrent Twitch viewers, making it by far the most watched Magic event ever. Even when you acknowledge that some juicing of those numbers was done through the now all too standard practice of embedding the broadcast as an ad on popular gaming websites, overall, the event was still the most watched by far, and it deserves all the praise and acknowledgement in this area. They pulled it off. And they pulled it off in no small part due to the lineup of fantastic, truly fantastic people playing in the event, and also those covering it. I mean, having the Mythic Pro League, the league of what is arguably the greatest, most talented Magic the Gathering players in the world, compete alongside and against streamers and other Magic personalities turned out to be a stroke of genius. We saw hardcore pros such as LSV, Jerry Thompson, Brad Nelson, Ben Stark, Jessica Estefan, Autumn Burchett, Reed Duke, BBD up against people we never get to see in such pro settings like this. Beloved streamers and personalities like Kenji, aka Numot the Nummy, Skybills, the Asian Avenger, Amazonium, Caleb Durward, MTG Nerd Girl, and even people we maybe are more used to seeing on coverage like Cedric Phillips and Brian David Marshall special. I mean, BDM was competing. What a stroke of genius and excitement for all. We saw underdogs trample over the safe bets. We saw our heroes go toe-to-toe with one another. There were people to root for, favorites, one and all, and so it was no surprise to me that this event got such a high number of eyeballs. Coverage was perhaps the finest ever assembled. Standing alongside giants such as Marshall Sutcliffe and Paul Cheon was the extraordinary talent of Day 9, Alias V, David Williams, Becca Scott, and on, each and every member taking us, the audience, through these matches with enthusiasm and expertise. So yeah, I loved it, and I think it was an overall success despite some really annoying audio issues which can easily be fixed. So we had all of this, the biggest, most viewed Magic event ever, the greatest field of competitors, the superlative coverage team, and the worst Magic the Gathering format ever. Duo Standard. How exactly do you play Duo Standard? Oh, I'm so glad you asked. In Duo Standard, each player creates two 60-card standard decks. There is no sideboarding, although you can create a sideboard to use for cards like Mastermind's Acquisition, but you do not sideboard between rounds. Instead, this is how it works. There are 3 games in a match. Game 1, each person picks one of their 2 decks to play, and who goes first is chosen at random. Game 2, each player must now use their second deck, and the other player will go first. Game 3, if you get to a Game 3, each player can choose their deck, but the first player is again random. There seem to be many reasons why Wizards of the Coast decided to go with this format, all of them wrong. The play mirrors the best-of-1 games in Arena Ladder, and more decks could theoretically be shown off since each player had 2, although players were also allowed to submit the same deck twice if they wanted, or just a slightly altered version. But the nature of this format made the outcome of many of the games more like an elaborate coin flip, rather than a normal game of Magic. This again was most likely intentional. Wizards of the Coast has demonstrated an almost, and I really do hate to say this, but I will, shame or perhaps just lack of confidence in Magic the Gathering since the explosion of Magic Arena took them to the big esports stage. It's as if they have no confidence in a proper game of Magic the Gathering and instead want to do whatever they can, including designing a new, never-before-tested format to headline their biggest event ever, just to try and make Magic look like something it's not. Something more like Hearthstone. If anything, I'd be proud of what Magic is. I am proud of what Magic is. I'd want to highlight the ways Magic is different than Hearthstone, better than Hearthstone. You like Hearthstone so much? Go apply for a job at Blizzard's, not Wizards. Embrace MTG. Don't be ashamed of it. I can't believe this is something I have to say about the people who actually make the greatest game in the world. Now, let's analyze some of the major problems with this standard duo format. To start, creating a format where each player needs 2 complete standard decks to play is greedy and out of the reach of many players. Can you imagine trying to make this a format that Magic players actually play? Imagine saying that for this week's Friday Night Magic or Standard Showdown, you need to come in with 2 decks instead of 1. It can be hard enough to get the cards for a single standard deck, let alone 2. I think it's telling that Wizards of the Coast did not even give the competitors in the Mythic Invitational the cards that they needed for the decks that they wanted to play. They all had to just crack packs and hope for wild cards leading into the event. Even Watsy said, "Yikes, 2 standard decks worth of cards? That's just too many for us to provide to all of you." The lack of sideboarding created a whole other set of problems, too. Players could not change their decks to react to what their opponent had put out. That leads to the following issues. Players end up with a lot of dead cards in their hands, as some cards don't work against certain types of decks. For example, if you have a creature removal in your deck, but are up against a control deck with barely any creatures, you are stuck holding a useless card with no way to fix it in the next game. A lot of the skill in competitive Magic is also in seeing how people react and modify their deck based on what their opponent has. This makes for very interesting matches where Game 2 and 3 can really show a player's skill. Without this reaction, and without any way to modify your deck, most matches end up being like those coin flips, where the deck that has the advantage in the matchup wins. This actually reduces the diversity of decks and favor decks that are more extreme. Mid-range decks, for example, that depend on their sideboard to respond to a matchup are at a disadvantage in this type of play. But that's not all that went wrong. This isn't just a rant about a lack of sideboards, because this wasn't just Duo Standard. The Mythic Invitational was a timed double elimination tournament. This created a circumstance that doesn't commonly come up in competitive play. If time ran out, the player with the higher life total would win the game, which goes against the very core of Magic the Gathering. Now, to be fair, there has been this rule in the Magic books that in elimination tournaments where there can't be a draw and needs to be a winner, life total is used to decide who wins if time runs out. However, just because this rule has technically been on the books doesn't mean it's one that competitive Magic has ever really operated off of, and with good reason, as the literal slides that play during Arena tell us, in Magic, your life total is not your score. It is a resource. Don't be afraid to use it as such. This event was held at a venue that created the time restriction, but there certainly could have been a better way to handle this, which I'll get to in a moment. There was a lot of outrage, for example, when Jerry Thompson lost his game due to time. While this has been a rule on the books for a long time, it almost never comes up in tournament play, and that's because historically, most tournaments have been Swiss, meaning draws were allowed, or otherwise not timed. In top 8, professional tournaments have traditionally been single elimination, but not timed, so this is essentially an obscure rule that almost never, to my knowledge, never has come up. I mean, again, in addition to the slide, there's literally a tip on Arena pointing out that life is a resource. A game won at 1 life is the same as a game won at 20 life. Well, maybe they need to add to that, except if you were in a timed single elimination tournament, in which case the very way that we play and understand Magic needs to fundamentally change. And this all goes back again to my point of the Invitational feeling like the higher ups didn't want to really show off Magic, or maybe even they've been embarrassed by it. It makes sense that there would be a time limit based on real-world logistics, but there's a simple fix to this problem that already existed in Magic Online. Timers. Now, chess timers can't realistically be employed in real-life events, but they have been used on Magic Online since its inception. But they never thought to take this critical aspect from Magic Online and program it into Magic Arena. So the Invitational had to invent a format and employ rules, bend rules, look up old obscure rules based on the limitations of Magic Arena. That's a very bad trend that yielded very bad results, as is any time you look at your cutting-edge software program and go, uh-oh, this doesn't have something really good that Magic Online has. Magic Online should not be doing it better than Magic Arena. Come on. In the end, it is my firm belief that the exact same viewership numbers would have been in place had the Magic Invitational employed a more traditional best-of-3 standard with sideboards. We didn't break 100K viewership because everyone heard the format would be sideboardless Duo Standard. We broke 100K because after decades of the travesty that has been Magic Online, Magic the Gathering finally has an online client that looks amazing, has an outstanding interface, is fun and engaging to watch, made even more fun and more engaging by an amazing selection of competitors from throughout all levels of Magic's community. The views would have been the same. This was our chance to show off proudly what a real game of Magic the Gathering looks like, and we decided instead to come up with a weird and convoluted format that had never been done before and was anything but. Even Wizards of the Coast acknowledged, somewhat, that Duo Standard was a flop, or in their highly edited and corporate speak words, quote unquote, We don't think Duo Standard balanced all those levers well, and this won't be the final form for esport events on Magic Arena. There are a lot of great learnings and data we'll be digging into over the next few weeks. We're excited to take what we've learned back to the format drawing board and make changes for our next event. My suggestion, how about the next event? We just play a game of Magic, like a regular game of Magic. At the end of the day, yes, there's a lot of subjective elements to declaring a format such as Duo Standard the worst of Magic the Gathering, but I'll offer up a closing argument for your consideration. In all the world, at all the Friday Night Magics, at all the Standard Showdowns, at every local game store, and at every Grand Prix, Mythic Championship, and Mythic Championship Qualifier, I suggest that you will never once see anyone playing, nor even requesting to play, Duo Standard. No one is showing up to Turbo Town at a Magic Fest with their 2 Duo Standard decks, and I suspect even on Magic Arena, the platform the format was literally invented for, you will never have the option to play Duo Standard. Magic Arena doesn't even have enough confidence to put Duo Standard on it. Why then was it what was used to represent Magic the Gathering at the biggest, most watched event ever? If this is such a great format, why are we not even allowed to play it on Arena? But that, of course, is just my own analysis. And now I want the analysis that really matters. Yours. Do you like Duo Standard? Did you enjoy watching it? Would you want to watch it again? How about would you want to play it on Arena or in paper? What format would you have preferred the Mythic Invitational to be? And do you hope we get another Invitational next year? Let me know in the comments below. And this program was made possible thanks to a sponsorship from Card Kingdom, as well as the Patreon support of viewers such as you. So thank you.